Adam is in Tel Aviv, in Israel. Adam, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello.
Thanks. Great speaking to you. A big fan.
Thank you.
So I'm here in Israel. Most people in Israel would label me left-wing, based on my views of absolutely wanting a two-state solution with full autonomy for the Palestinians. I've always felt that way, and I haven't changed my mind during the war, even though we are here in Israel. But I do at the same time, sadly, think that we do need this war, and I do support the war at the same time. So I have these rather conflicting ideologies, if you will.
Well, they wouldn't be conflicting if you felt that the latter moves the case or the likelihood of the former. If you felt it moved it forward, your position would be unimpeachable. But I'm interested in whether or not that is what you think.
I think, I know this always sounds very clinical, but I think if we can, and I don't think removing or eliminating is the correct word. And I think my government and actually foreign governments have done a bad job when we've said Israel's objective is to destroy Hamas or destroy Hezbollah. Like you say with your unicorn analogy, it's not possible. But what we do need to do, and I think we have done quite successfully, certainly with Hamas, is decapitate them to a level of impotency that, yes, they may still exist ideologically and even at some level militarily, but not in the ability. I mean, we've here in Tel Aviv and in the south of Israel, we've had almost no missiles from Hamas, in the last few months, and their capability to attack us has gone. Can it come back in the future? Absolutely. That's a whole other conversation. But the fact is, militarily, there are objectives that Israel is and will complete. What we then need to do, and this is where I'll go back to my left wing.
To pause you. I mean, I think in the last report I saw on this was in June, so not that long ago, and the estimate there from the Council on Foreign Relations was that Hamas still had between 9,000 and 12,000 fighters, about half of what it had at the start, about 12 to 15 battalions. I also have to wonder whether if you were right and that was wrong, or if the situation had changed measurably between June and October, that's a case for stopping. That's a case for a ceasefire. If Hamas really have been curtailed in the way that you described, then you'd have to be calling for a ceasefire in Gaza while also urging on the invasion of Lebanon. So you're right, your position is quite complicated.
Yeah. Well, I would say that the job's not done yet.
Right.
We need to ensure not only that they stop temporarily, they're sort of on the ropes, if you will, but that we actually remove the ability for them to continue and to regroup and to do it again.
And how feasible do you think that is? In the context of the two-state solution that you want? Because if I take Netanyahu's vision of Israeli security control over the whole of Gaza, turning it essentially into another left bank, I can see how that might hold temporarily until the next atrocity or the next attack or the next act of vengeance. But the idea that it's and then you speak to the Jordanian foreign minister's point about the enmity, the resentment that is now being stored up for generations to come.
Yes. Well, so I mean, as you know more than anyone, there's a lot to unpack here, and it is extremely complicated.
Sure.
And a lot of the time, multiple things that appear to be conflicting are all true at the same time.
Yes.
I agree that everything we're doing at the moment builds resentment at best and violence at worst for the future. I agree with it. It is a correct statement. However, when you
go on, sorry.
Yeah, I'll just say However, when you are faced with a clear and present immediate
to do
threat,
something.
You have no choice.
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying you have to do something. I'm saying Israel right now cannot say, well, you know what, let's leave Hamas and Hezbollah because they're pretty bad today.
Well, I mean, except again, you come back to the 57 Arab states that the Jordanian foreign minister professed to speak for, saying get out of the occupied territories.
I'm not sure he is.
Well, that's convenient. That's convenient. He's at least as honest a broker as anybody else in this mix. And in fact it's a precedent. It has been offered. The Arab League and I think United Nations members have promised or pledged to safeguard peace for Israel if they get out of the occupied territories. That's the problem, isn't it, Adam? Isn't it always going to come back to that? Isn't it always going to come back to where the disagreement over where Israel has a right to be?
Well, let me put to you all.
I'd rather you answered my question.
Yeah. So the same Arab League that are making that claim are also the same Arab League who many of their members have complicitly and directly supported Hamas and Hezbollah.
Yeah, I may have misspoken when I said Arab League. I meant sort of the Arab coalition that the foreign minister of Jordan was talking about. So forgive me for that. Let me move you to that question about when they say withdraw from the occupied territories and we will guarantee peace in the region, and then they don't. Then the case that you're making becomes uncontestable. But if they do,
how many Israeli lives? How many Israeli lives do we have to risk? I mean, we're talking about
how many Arab lives do we have to lose in the meantime? And we're back to that thing where you don't see yourself in this space, but we are back to the place where one life is worth more than another, depending upon your own loyalties and origins.
Not at all.
I think so. Forgive me if I'm doing you a disservice.
No, this is an interesting point, and of course this is bigger than you and I, and the people listening need to hear all these sides. So I enjoy the conversation, so no problem at all. But there are things that we can legitimately discuss and even criticize Israel for, just like any nation state. Past, present, and future policies are all up for discussion, criticism, and even anger.
But they're not. Is it still fair to describe it as the current cabinet deserving of the description of a normal nation state with terrorist convictions on the CVs of some of its members and long histories of extremism and obvious racism, professed beliefs in things that I think you and I would both describe as disgusting if they were happening in another government anywhere else in the world?
I agree.
Right.
I agree. I did not vote for this government, and I certainly won't. So I'm against this government, as you know and have reported on extensively. Half the country is. So I agree. I would, however, say that we don't want to judge the government by its extreme elements. I mean, the comments made about nuclear bombs and this, that, and the other.
We judge the Palestinian people by the actions and the words of Hamas.
Well,
surely that's a much graver injustice for some poor soul in Gaza who hates Hamas is being told by Israeli politicians that they deserve to die and can't possibly be innocent because of what Hamas have done.
Well, James, you hit the nail on the head. There's words and there's actions. The words from certain members of the Israeli government are ridiculous. And when they use
the actions are pretty bad too, Adam. The actions are pretty bad too.
They're not the same as the words. No one is taking a nuclear bomb to Gaza, and it's not even an option. It's just ridiculous, right? Those comments.
But they've killed 40,000 people. They've killed 40,000 people. And that is built upon the conviction. But that's built upon the conviction that there is no such thing as innocent people in Gaza.
No, that's not true. No.
It's how it looks to me.
It may well, but the people that have died. They fall into two categories, and again, it's really not nice to have to clinically label people. But for the purposes of the conversation, you'll forgive me.
Of course,
the terrorists who we're actively pursuing, and unfortunately, and I hate this term, everyone does, and the collateral damage of those people that are embedded, or the other way around, that the terrorists have embedded within the Gaza population. Gaza is an extremely crowded area.
All civilians are collateral damage if you split enough hairs, including Israeli ones.
Correct. Absolutely. Well, what's different? The collateral damage is usually. Let me explain. Collateral damage is usually refers to when your target is not the one. Yeah, but you're showing
enormous faith in the Israeli military operation, so they're just not very good. Then that's why so many innocent people have died. So they've tried really, really hard. They've tried really, really hard to kill only terrorists, but they've accidentally killed anywhere between, 25 and 30,000 civilians.
Well, when you're operating in an area of 2 million people in a tiny geographical location, actually that is a small number. But again, any number is too big.
Okay.
Any number is too big.
But it's small and too big at the same time. If they were hiding in Israel, I suspect they'd have used much more sophisticated technology to target the terrorists, wouldn't they?
Well, if they're hiding in Israel and the places they were hiding in Israel were run by them, supported by them...
No, they're hiding. They're hiding. They don't know where they are. They're hiding. So you'd have to think, you'd hold your fire, wouldn't you, until you were absolutely certain that you were only going to get the target. You wouldn't accommodate the necessity of epic collateral damage, or, as I prefer to call it, carnage.
It's all relative to the numbers. 2 million people in Gaza, and so for Israel to be able to pick, Hamas is embedded in every corner of Gaza. Every corner. Every other building.
I know. And in conclusion, how lonely is your position on the two-state solution now? I mean, you opened by describing your position of being quite left-wing by the standards of many Israelis. I think where the conversation has subsequently gone will have left people quite shocked by that description, although I understand its accuracy. How lonely is the support for the two-state solution among ordinary people that you encounter? Because Netanyahu is explicitly opposed to it, and so are many of his key allies currently.
Well, so I think, look, extremism breeds extremism, but at a political level as well as
how lonely is your position on this? Because it seems to me to have moved further away than ever from likelihood as a consequence of Israel's actions as much as anybody else's. So when you call for a two-state solution, how much of that is words and how much of that is conviction, belief that it could actually happen?
Everyone. So for me personally, it's 100% conviction. And unfortunately, my conviction is not enough. But when I speak to Israelis, even the most right-wing Israelis, they all say the same thing. We want peace. We want a two-state solution. We don't want war, but there's no one on the other side to trust. It's very, very simple. In any type of negotiation...
That's very convenient. And the words of the Jordanian foreign minister will be ringing in many ears, as will the image of the map that eradicates the modern state of Jordan and constitutes an ambition for members of
you're taking
Netanyahu's cabinet.
There is no one in the Israeli government at any serious weight or any serious support.
Well, that's very convenient. So you can't trust anybody else, and the ones in the Israeli government who look really toxic, you've got to ignore them as well. So who do we trust then?
Judge it based on the actions.
Well, I am, and we're even arguing about the actions and the necessity or otherwise of them. But thank you for your contribution and indeed for your civil tone, even as we can disagree intelligently. I sometimes worry, as I'm sure you do, Adam, about whether or not we're being a little bit, and you're obviously a lot closer to the action than I am in Tel Aviv, but when we pat each other on the back for being polite, I do worry sometimes that it almost ignores the seriousness of what's actually happening outside the realm of conversation. But to say that perhaps is to denigrate diplomacy itself.